to read you the story of Little Red Riding Hood. The version that I'm going to read you is by Jacob and William Grimm. Once there was a dear little girl whom everyone loved. Her grandmother loved her most of all and didn't know what to give her child next. Once she gave a little red velvet cap, which was so becoming of her that she never wanted to wear anything else. And that was why everyone called her Little Red Cap. One day, her mother said, "Look, Little Red Cap, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is sick and weak, and they will make her feel better. You'd better start now before it gets too hot. Walk properly like a good little girl, and don't leave the path or you'll fall down and break the bottle, and there won't be anything for grandmother. And when you get to her house, don't forget to say good morning, and don't go looking in all the corners." "I'll do everything right," Little Red Cap promised her mother. Her grandmother lived in the woods, half an hour's walk from the village. No sooner had Little Red Cap set foot in the woods than she met a wolf. But Little Red Cap didn't know what a wicked beast he was, so she wasn't afraid of him. "Good morning, Little Red Cap," he said. "Thank you kindly, Wolf." "Where are you going so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "And what's that you've got under your apron?" "Cake and wine. We baked yesterday, and we want my grandmother, who's sick and weak, to have something nice that will make her feel better." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "In the woods, 15 or 20 miles walk from here. Under the 3 big oak trees. That's where the house is. It has hazel hedges around it. You must know the place." "How young and tender she is," thought the wolf. "Why, she'll be even tastier than the old woman. Maybe if I'm crafty enough, I can get them both." So, after walking along for a short while beside Little Red Cap, he said, "Little Red Cap, open your eyes. What lovely flowers! Why don't you look around you? I don't believe you even hear how sweetly the birds are singing. It's so gay out here in the woods, yet you trudge along as solemnly as if you were going to school." Little Red Cap looked up, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing that way between the trees and the beautiful flowers all around her, she thought, "Grandmother will be pleased if I bring her a bunch of nice fresh flowers. It's so early now that I'm sure to be there in plenty of time." So she left the path and went into the woods to pick flowers. And when she had picked one, she thought there must be a more beautiful one further on, so she went deeper and deeper into the woods. As for the wolf, he went straight to grandmother's house and knocked on the door. "Who's there?" "Little Red Cap. Bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Just raise the latch," cried grandmother. "I'm too weak to get out of bed." The wolf raised the latch, and the door swung open. Without saying a single word, he went straight to grandmother's bed and gobbled her up. Then he put on her clothes and her nightcap, laid down in bed, and drew the curtains. Meanwhile, Little Red Cap had been running about, picking flowers, and when she had as many as she could carry, she remembered her grandmother and started off again. She was surprised to find the door open, and when she stepped into the house, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "My goodness, I'm usually so glad to see grandmother. Why am I frightened today?" "Good morning," she cried out, but there was no answer. Then she went to the bed and opened the curtains. The grandmother had her cap pulled way down over her face and looked very strange. "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with." "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have." "The better to see you with." "Oh, grandmother, what big hands you have." "The better to grab you with." "Oh, grandmother, what a dreadful big mouth you have." the better to eat you with." And no sooner had the wolf spoken than he bounded out of bed and gobbled up poor little Redcap. When the wolf had stilled his hunger, he got back into bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very, very loud. A hunter was passing, and he thought, "How the old woman is snoring! I'd better go and see what's wrong." So he stepped into the house and went over to the bed and saw the wolf was in it. "You old sinner," he said, "I've found you at last. It's been a long time." He leveled his musket and was just about to fire when it occurred to him that the wolf might have swallowed the grandmother, and there might still be a chance of saving her. So, instead of firing, he took a pair of scissors and started cutting the sleeping wolf's belly open. After 2 snips, he saw little Redcap, and after another few snips, the little girl jumped out crying, "Oh, I have been so afraid! It was so dark inside the wolf." And then the old grandmother came out, and she too was still alive, though she could hardly breathe. Little Redcap ran outside and brought big stones, and they filled the wolf's belly with them. When he woke up, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that his legs wouldn't carry him, and he fell dead. All 3 were happy, and the hunter skinned the wolf and went home with the skin, and grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine little Redcap had brought her, and soon got well. And as for little Redcap, she said to herself, "Never again will I leave the path and run off into the woods when my mother tells me not to." Another story they tell is that when little Redcap was taking another cake to her old grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and tried to make her leave the path. But little Redcap was on her guard. She kept on going, and when she got to her grandmother's, she told her how she had met a wolf who had bidden her a good day, but had given her such a wicked look that, if it hadn't been on an open road, he'd have gobbled me right up. "Well then," said the grandmother, "we'll just have to lock the door, and he won't be able to get in." In a little while, the wolf knocked on the door and called out, "Open the door, grandmother, it's little Redcap. I've brought you some cake." But they didn't say a word, and they didn't open the door. So Greyhead circled the house once or twice, finally jumped on the roof. His plan was to wait until evening, when little Redcap would go home, and then he'd creep on after her and gobble her up in the darkness. But the grandmother guessed what he had in mind. There was a big stone throw in the front of the house, and she said to the child, "Here's a bucket, little Redcap. I cooked some sausages yesterday. Take the water I cooked them in and empty it into the throw." Little Redcap carried the water until the throw was full. The smell of the sausages rose up to the wolf's nostrils. He sniffed and looked down, and in the end he stuck his neck out so far that he couldn't keep his footing and began to slide. And he slid off the roof and slid straight into the big throw and was drowned, and little Redcap went happily home, and no one harmed her. The end. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. I hope you've enjoyed it. Good night.